This is Sarnia Lambton Daily for Wednesday, April 15th. Good evening, I'm Terry Doyle. Lambton Public Health is reporting that the numbers are currently holding steady for positive cases of COVID-19 in the region. As of this morning, there are still 119 positive cases in the area, the same total as Tuesday's update. The number of people who have recovered has increased to 35. It takes at least 2 weeks from the time someone tests positive to be considered recovered from the virus. There are still over 100 local tests that Lambton Public Health are still awaiting the results for. While the numbers remain steady right now in Sarnia Lambton, officials are still planning for a surge in patients, just in case it happens. This includes setting up a field hospital at Lambton College. Many community partners came together to make it happen. One of those community partners that came together with the field hospital is Jason McMichael, president of the Sarnia Distirct Labor Council. He joins me now. And Jason, fill us in. How did this come about to gather everyone together to put together this field hospital at Lambton College?
Thanks, Terry. Well, it was really quite from start to finish. It was quite an endeavor. Ron Smith from the city of Sarnia reached out to me a couple Fridays ago and had asked if I knew, had the ability to pull together folks who would have the skills necessary to erect such a emergency field hospital. Ironically, just that day, Rick Prideaux from Toolright Engineering had reached out to me as well, just to say, he didn't want to bother them at the hospital, but he wanted to offer any services he could. Him and his group from the Sarnia Lambton Industrial Alliance were offering any services they could. So the timing was perfect. I put Ron in touch with Rick, and they got their heads together, and Rick was really instrumental in pulling this thing together. He had a drawing within 24 hours, and they had it, greenlit by the city, I think within 48 hours. And from that point on, it was just sort of raising some of the necessary funds and coming up with the labor to actually build it once the fab shops had it created. So, this is, as you know, a very generous community, and it really, the incredible people at CARE from our petrochemical industry came up with a significant amount of money. The Sarnia Construction Association came up with a significant amount of money. Blue Water Power, Matthew Hay from BMO Nesbitt Burns, they all contributed financially, and we were able to come up with the $85,000. So we got this thing built with essentially no cost to the city or to Blue Water Health. I'd be remiss if I didn't add that my own union, LIUNA, provided all of the manpower to actually erect the structure and the infrastructure of the private portion of the field hospital, and those guys came out on their own time on Good Friday to make sure that it was up. And it's one of those things that it's nice to have, and we just pray that we don't need it.
No, and that's exactly it. And it's got to be rewarding that here it is, people that want to do something. I'm sure in some cases everybody's staying safe, as you just said, didn't want to bother the hospital, but at the same time, I'm sure once a couple of phone calls were made, people were willing to say, okay, what can I do?
That's exactly right. Whether it was for the financial contributions, whether it was for the in-kind donations, all of the phone calls I made, not a single person said anything except whatever you need.
That's great to hear. And the nice thing, of course, this is a field hospital put in place just in case, but I understand some measures have been put in place that if it's not needed during this pandemic, between yourselves and the city, there's some things in place to obviously hold these materials for potentially something down the road.
That's correct. Ron was able to facilitate getting 2 53-foot trailers that will house this. Obviously, everything would be sealed and cleaned and sealed, and it could be used in any community in Ontario in the future, should we, a crisis hit that would require a field hospital.
Jason, in general, we've seen it's been an interesting time for everyone, a challenging time for a lot of people as well. In terms of the labor community here in Sarnia Lambton, what are you seeing? What are you hearing right now? Well,
our building trades have probably been the hardest hit. Obviously, most construction has stopped. All non-essential construction has stopped in the city. And so we have our building trades unions have been put in a bit of a bind because a lot of the folks aren't working. But, even more importantly than that is the fact that what we've really seen from our labor community in Sarnia is just everybody coming together to offer whatever it is. And, the field hospital is just one example, but all of the unions have been very, very generous in ensuring that our frontline staff are taken care of. The folks who are still going to work are taken care of. Many unions, I know Local 1256 in Sarnia has made significant contributions to Blue Water Health Foundation. I know that LiUNA Local 1089 has donated thousands of masks to Blue Water Health. All of the building trades unions, all of our unions have really come together in this time and propped up our community. And it's really such a privilege to be part of this union community. As you've probably heard me say before, Sarnia is a union town, and we have the highest skilled, safest workforce in the world. But I'd love to add to that, it's also probably the most generous workforce. It's really been a tremendous privilege and a real joy to watch how folks came together.
You talk about some of the things being on hold right now. Does it appear as though, for most part, everything's on pause versus I guess we look at is when the doors are able to be opened back up again? Does it appear things still look pretty positive?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of work to be done in this community, and we know from our talks with the government as well that the government is working on putting in place some new stimulus packages for when we come out of this pandemic. So there's going to be a lot of work to come. Folks, you know, we're gonna weather the storm. We always do, but when we come out of it, there's going to be a lot of work, and it'll get Sarnia Lambton thriving again. I'm very confident of that.
We saw, of course, some of the cases where the provincial government was deciding what could continue on and what could not. Was it sort of from your perspective where it's like, okay, guys, be ready because there is that possibility that things could just be put on hold?
Absolutely, and you know, I've got to give a lot of credit to both our provincial and federal governments. They've really stepped up. There's been constant consultation with the labor movement throughout this. Not a day goes by that the governments aren't in contact with us to check in, see how folks are doing, see what's coming up. They're consulting with us on what projects can go forward quickly once we come out of this. And it may seem this may seem strange coming from me, but I got to tell you, the leadership of both provincial and federal governments have really stepped up, and it's really made me proud to call Ontario and Canada home during this.
No, it's certainly everyone working together. Jason, you've got a forum here with us right now. What message would you have for members of the Sarnia District Labour Council right now?
You know, just stay strong, stay generous. I'm so proud to be part of this labor movement. You know, it's a real privilege to be part of the Sarnia District Labour Council and the labor community in Sarnia at the best of times. But at times like this, it really shows how strong this labor community is, and it's just such a privilege. I'm so proud to be part of it. So stay strong and stay safe, everyone.
Well, Jason, for you and the team that worked together at the Field Hospital at Lambton College, congratulations. Certainly everyone deserves a pat on the back working together there. And for everyone, stay safe, stay well. And Jason, we appreciate you joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Terry.
There's Jason McMichael from the Sarnia District Labour Council joining us here. More to come on Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Welcome back to Sarnia Lambton Daily here on your TV. Well, since the pandemic started, and even a little bit before it was officially declared, we saw the financial markets go on quite the roller coaster ride, and of course initially down, but we wanted to get an update and talk about where things stand and maybe some things people can consider moving forward. Ian Bagnell joins me now from Investment Planning Council here in Sarnia. And Ian, right off the bat, let's kind of take the 30,000-foot view. Where do we stand right now? We saw a big drop right off the bat, but how would you characterize where the markets and the financial industry stands right now?
Well, good morning, Terry. Yeah, we did take a big drop right off the bat. For the first month of this crisis, the markets were down about 30%. They have worked their way back a little bit. I think on average, they're still down about 20%. That's global equity markets. So I think, people still need to be cautious because there's a lot of unknown out there. We're just starting to get into seeing earnings for major corporations around the world. That will certainly, I think, have an effect on what happens over the coming months.
Could we be in a case where, and we're just sort of you and I speculating a little bit, but where we see, for example, some of the positivity when it comes to the pandemic in terms of the flattening of the curve, maybe restrictions being lifted in terms of social distancing, that may come first, but as you said, because maybe the financial impact of this, we may not see for a little while.
You know what? I think that's a great point. And, as I've been doing my due diligence throughout this pandemic, a lot of analysts have been saying, we need to see the flattening of the curve. We need to see some good news around the coronavirus markets to kind of get feeling better about things. But what we've been hearing is that this recovery will be more either like a U shape or a W. And it appears right now like it's looking more like a W in terms of the recovery.
Panic is certainly something that people might want to think about, but that's probably, I got to think, the worst thing you could do right now.
Absolutely. Panic means that you have taken that loss. I mean, if you stay invested, it doesn't look pretty right now. But my belief is that it will come back. And if you're invested according to your time horizon and your risk tolerance, stay the course.
And I guess that's the one thing people maybe don't understand or maybe don't think about. On paper, if I'm just going to use random numbers, you had $100,000 invested, sure, it dropped to 65 or 70, but right now that doesn't mean anything if you're not touching that money. And maybe you can sort of elaborate on that a little more. The fact that, if it's not money if it's money you're thinking for 20 years from now towards retirement, what it looks at in 2020 at this moment really doesn't mean a whole lot.
Well, and I would agree with that. And I think your time horizon is very important, especially as we go through times like this where markets are very volatile. For people that don't have that longer term time horizon, cash available for immediate and short-term income needs is also very important too. If you have cash available, you can withstand the shock that maybe the rest of your portfolio is taken.
We've talked a lot of times on this show about, and I know our guest that's going to come up in the next segment, talking about using this as an opportunity. And I would think when it comes to your financial situation, investing, an opportunity to maybe hit the reset button a little bit and evaluate where you are. And you talked earlier, and we talked about risk tolerance. And I've got to think that's an area right now to look at to see, are you in the right risk tolerance for your timeline? Is this where maybe it's a good chance to just take that 30,000-foot view of everything?
Absolutely, Terry. You and I talked before we came on air about clients' risk tolerance being a moving target. It is a great time to review that. It's also a great time for individual people to look at their own personal budgets, how their spending habits are, how that can be changed. Those things are important right now too. And you mentioned about opportunity for people that do have the willingness and the assets to do so. There are some opportunities out there right now, and opportunities will present themselves as we move through the coming months.
When your clients call you or you call them, is there a common theme in terms of how the discussions go?
No, I think you have to look at each client on an individual basis. There are, parameters that I use around investing my clients' assets. So I want to look at what will best fit their need at that time.
Is there any, in terms of the analysts, what they're saying? We saw, the drop. You talked about it could be a U, it could be a W. Is there sort of a consensus out there right now in terms of how long this side of it will go? It's one thing what the medical people say and the politicians say in terms of the health side of this. Is there an idea where they're thinking, okay, if you started 2020 with this much, you leave it alone, you should be back to where you roughly were over a certain amount of time? Is there a consensus out there how long that might take?
I don't think that we're able to give a consensus like that. First off, because individual clients' risk tolerances are different. And secondly, because again, until I think there's a greater euphoria around the coronavirus, the curve being flattened, a vaccine being in place, I don't think we really know. Like even the Prime Minister came out yesterday saying that this still could be a lengthy process in terms of the self-isolation. So I think we might be premature on that. But I do think that, just as the financial crisis in 2008, there are opportunities to be had out there. Talk to your financial advisor. That would be my best recommendation.
And I guess at the end of the day, relax, evaluate, communicate. That sounds like probably where you're going with this. Yes.
Being relaxed right now, I think, is your best friend. Panic is your enemy. Try to avoid the media. And all due respect, Terry, but there is something out there right now where people are kind of maybe doing too much exposure to the news about the pandemic on a regular basis. That can kind of fuel you feeling a little bit more nervous and getting a little bit more anxious about things.
What is your rule? And this isn't just during a pandemic. This is any time when people should be looking at their financial situation. How often should they evaluate where they stand, both their investments, their budgets? How often should they be looking at it versus some people who might want to look at it every day, and that might be something for their blood pressure that doesn't work out very well?
Well, for your individual money, I read a book once called The Thin Green Line, and I found it to be very interesting. It was a New York Times author, and he interviewed 25 very wealthy people from Wall Street, and they looked at their money 3 to 4 times a week. So that's kind of an interesting concept. In terms of reviewing your portfolio with a financial advisor, I think the size of your portfolio will dictate a month, quarterly, semi-annually, annually. You need to set parameters with the advisor that you're working with on how often you want to get together and have those meetings. Goals are important too. Are you saving for a home? Are you saving for a child's education? Are you saving for retirement? Are you saving for a second property? What are you saving for? And things need to be time bound. Absolutely.
Well, Ian Bagnell from Investment Planning Counsel, we appreciate you taking a few minutes. Stay safe there, and we will catch up with you soon.
Thank Terry. Stay safe and stay healthy. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ian. There's Ian Bagnell from Investment Planning Counsel joining us here. We'll take a break. You're watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Back here on Sarnia Lambton Daily, and throughout our run here, we've always tried to look at positive stories and also look at the mental health aspects of the pandemic. And when it comes to positivity during a pandemic, wanted to go around the more positive people I know. The host of Women Who Lead here on your TV, Christy Primmer, joins me now from her residence in Winter Haven, Florida. Of course, lives in this region as well, but spends time in the winters. And Christy, I know it was a case for you where you were down there during the winter and decided this is a safe place. You can work remotely, so why not hang out there?
Yeah, absolutely, Terry. It's been very interesting to navigate through being here alone. My husband and son are at home in Wyoming, and really just thankful that I have created an online business that allows me to serve my clients in this capacity and just taking it day by day.
For you, as you said, with your business, you can work remotely with calls, whether by phone or by video conference, as we're doing here as well. And does that make it where, hey, it really doesn't matter where you are? So you were in a safe spot. I think you told me before you were planning to come home earlier this month, but it's a case, hey, you're in a safe spot, stay put.
Absolutely, Terry. So I originally was hoping to be home by April 6th. But as you know, there in Sarnia Lambton, the travel restrictions are still in place. And it's more of a risk to actually be traveling through the states now home. And, I have clients all over the world. And as long as I figure out the time zones, I'm able to be of service to those clients from my phone, my laptop. So it's actually been very enlightening to see just how important the virtual aspect of a business is these days.
Now, as you talk to people, it's nervous times for some people, but also people, I'm sure, looking for opportunities where they can even use the time they have. And we've talked about being agile right now, and seems to be even redirecting or looking for areas of growth. And I've got to think in some of the conversations you've had with people, that's some of those areas you've discussed.
Absolutely. One of the things I'm telling, not just my clients, but my community, I have a huge community on Instagram and Facebook, and there's no right way to feel right now. And I think when we take that pressure off of ourselves, it actually helps our mental wellness in so many different ways, because we're alleviating that pressure to be a certain way, feeling a certain way, doing certain things. But this is a time to rise up and actually really appreciate the blessings that we do have. I mean, there's a lot of stress, but stress is also perception. And I would give anything to be at home with my husband and child, but I also only have one child. So I know clients I'm talking to that have 3 or 4 children. They're bored. Online education is very new. Lots of dads working from home. So it's just navigating this new dynamic, because we don't know how long this is going to be the way of times right now. It might be another month or two.
Do you find people are also maybe taking this time to just evaluate where they are in their career, in their business, to say, okay, what's working, what has been working, and now maybe they get a chance to sort of look at things from a 30,000-foot view and look to see maybe this is maybe an area to stop focusing on versus a new areas to start focusing on?
Yes, and it's been an incredible, almost an epiphany for many people I've spoken to about what are they really doing with their lives? How are they showing up in their relationships, in their careers, at home, with their friendships? Really using this time to expand on who they want to be. A lot of people, and myself included, we can take things for granted because every day We have our routines. We're on autopilot a lot of the time. And this has been a forced slowdown. We all are hopefully doing our part by staying home. And the self-reflection that I see happening has been very positive. You know, eating healthier, not using this as an excuse to just binge eat on all the chips and chocolate, and you know, drinking a little bit less, even though, I mean, no judgment here, but some people, you know, that glass of wine is what gets us through the night. But really looking at how do we want to show up and how do we want to live?
You've talked about it on Instagram, one of your updates recently, just you kind of control what you can put in your head, whether it's that information or just your general thoughts. You can take control of that and, you know, allow you to think more of the positive things.
Absolutely, Terry. One of the things I firmly believe is that we need to take radical responsibility for our lives. And I write about this in my books. I talk about it even on Women Who Lead. And every day in my messaging, we are choosing our thoughts. Some people need to limit their access to certain family members. You know, a lot of people right now are on the phone with people that are inundating them with death updates and fear, a lot of fear. And I think, you know, you guys have been doing an exceptional job at posting updates and being very forward with what's going on in our community back home. And I've been loving to follow that. But what I've been telling people is monitor the media that you're ingesting, put boundaries in place within, you know, your digital media, the contacts, people who you're consuming information from, because literally this is the time to see how important our thoughts are in shaping our daily lives.
The idea of working from home has become more and more of a thing before, never mind now, it's grown even more in this pandemic. Have you seen that with the business clients looking to say, hey, wait a minute, I can maybe have a better work-life balance through some of these new technologies?
Yeah, it's been actually quite, I want to say, significant in how people are changing the way they do business. It's not business as usual, it's business virtual. And it's actually been, for me, very rewarding because I have clients that are skyrocketing their sales. They're getting on more calls. They're really putting themselves out there because let's face it, this is the day and age of technology. We've got to utilize what we have and be grateful for it. And when we can actually get more control of our calendar, these are the moments and the days to implement these new routines and these new behaviors, especially in business. And as we move forward, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, when things get back to our new normal, as I've been calling it, we can keep these behaviors and habits, and business is thriving. Like, there are so many people right now using the power of the internet and social media to meet new potential clients, build connections, and really show up in a different way.
Before we let you go, season 1 of Women Who Lead has been airing here on your TV, and you and I have already discussed looking ahead to a second season once we get things a little bit back to, as you said, the new normal. But take me through what that experience was like dealing with those business people, those women in business here in Sarnia, Lambton.
It was incredible. I am and have always been a woman that empowers other women, and just being able to see what and who is available in our community, the kinds of businesses, the services, women that are taking responsibility and accelerating their vision, making it actually happen and making money from it to give back to our community. Women Who Lead has been a catalyst for change, not just for the women that I've had on the show, but for me myself. And, you know, I can't wait to dive into season 2 whenever COVID allows that to happen.
Well, Christy, we appreciate you taking the time. We wanted to check in, as I said, someone who certainly one of the more positive people that I know, and it's not an easy time for a lot of people, so hopefully a little positivity helps them out. Stay safe there, and we will see you back here at some point, hopefully very soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Terry.
That's Christy Primmer, host of Women Who Lead here on your TV, and certainly deals with a lot of clients staying safe down there in her Florida home, but glad she was able to give us a few minutes here. That's going to do it for Sarnia Lambton Daily for this Wednesday. For all of us here at your TV, I'm Terry Doyle. Thanks for joining us.